Hello and welcome to Discourse with Peacocks. This is quite a delayed video. I'm going to kind of do it mishmashed together with the Coventry and the Millwall Cup game. I'm going to start off with it's going to be a mishmash. It's not going to be as organised as I try and make it because it's been a hectic week. And with the games coming thick and fast, it has meant that I've not had the time to film these two separately. So I thought I'd just bunch it all together and we can have an emotional roller coaster throughout the video, which is what it's like being a Leeds United supporter anyway. We'll start with the good as always. Again, I'm mixing all of the good from both games, and you'll see it's quite lopsided with one and the other. Good against Coventry. It was probably the most convincing 2-0 win I have ever seen from Leeds United, and really from kind of most teams. We missed so many opportunities. I think we had 20 shots, 8 on target, and I think that we actually created more opportunities against Cardiff than we did against Coventry than we did against Cardiff, but there was an element that was missing, and we will get onto that in the bad section. But I think that we truly showed Frank Lampard and his Coventry team that we mean business, and that last season, obviously, they were a bit of a bogey team for us in terms of we didn't get the win against them in either game. But I think that we were so dominant, and if you were a neutral and you were watching this game and you said one was in the Premier League and one was in the Championship, you would believe that because there seemed to be a gulf in the kind of the quality and the creativity and the structure and the understanding between the individual players. It was just we were incredibly dominant. We were relentless. We were inevitable. Uh, We were Leeds United of this season. You know, we were a force to be reckoned with really throughout the entire 90 minutes. We gave them very few opportunities, and the only opportunities that they did have, my man of the match, Meslier, I know, a bit shocking after recent weeks, but he made two absolutely outstanding saves. One down to his left hand side, and I believe it had a better XG than a penalty. It was like 0.93 or something very similar to that. And then the other one that he tipped onto the crossbar, and I think it was Gruev who got the clearance away after that. But two very impressive and 3-point saving goals, might I add. You know, I've been very critical of Meslier this season, saying that there's not very many opportunities that he has taken literally with both hands and saved us points. You know, we've had midfielders, we've had defenders, you know, we've had wingers and strikers gain us points, but we haven't had really, other than the Middlesbrough game probably this season, where the goalkeeper has actually convincingly saved us points. And because of the fact that we didn't have our scoring boots on, or our converting boots on Wednesday, we needed a goalkeeper to save us from, because that very easily could have ended up 2-2, because those chances were absolutely fantastic chances from Coventry. So even though we limited them to very little, the ones that they did have were really good chances. And if you're a Coventry fan, or if that was a Leeds player, as it was actually several times at the other end of the pitch where it should have been a goal, you know, Pirro, Dan James, Solomon, everybody missed sitters, but Meslier kept us. Those, you know, we didn't drop points because of Meslier, and that's a really good thing. And he got voted Leeds United's player of the match by the fans, which again I think will do his confidence just the world of good, and hopefully um, it will mean that going into this kind of final push of the season, it will mean that he's at his best because the manager has backed him potentially to his own detriment, and he did it. You know, he saved us those points. So I'm very happy, very pleased for him because I have no personal grudge against Meslier as a human being. His goalkeeping has left a lot to be desired at some points over the last few seasons, but I am really pleased because every member from the back to the front has earned us points this season now, and or saved us points, however you would like to phrase it. And I'm really happy. I feel, I don't know, quite a maternal feeling towards Meslier in the fact of, he really did need that, a bit like Nonto and Joseph scoring the goals in the Cardiff game. They really needed that. Meslier really needed to be the hero for once and not the villain. I'm very happy for him, very pleased. Another player that I'm also very pleased for is Bogle. I think that he has become this like man possessed. He's like the right back version of Firpo. He's not quite as he'll end up in the number 9, although he kind of did with obviously the goal that he scored. But I was so happy for him. And again, he's another player I was critical of, and deservedly so at the beginning of the season. He really took kind of a long time to get where he is. But I think that Farker has taken him and turned him into the right back that we probably needed last season. And this isn't a slight on Archie, but if you give us a right back such as Bogle in those games where we needed something, when we weren't really getting any creativity, especially in the end of the season from any of our midfield, and very few goals from the people who had been scoring earlier on, your Somervilles, all of these people, if you'd have had Bogle pushing on and further up the pitch and creating opportunities, perhaps last season's a different ending. I'm really happy for him. He's growing in confidence and he looks like he's really enjoying it. A bit like Dan James looks like he's really enjoying his football. I am going to say some brief good things about the game on Saturday against Millwall because there wasn't that many good things. It was a very mismatched game. Obviously, he made like 10 changes. I think it's very hard to see the best of certain players, certain individuals, when you overhaul the complete team. You're not allowing certain players that are on the fringes to work with the best members of the team. You're putting the majority of your bench players all together and expecting them to kind of like gel, and that really wasn't the case. There were some shining lights. I thought Sam Chambers used his, physicality. If you didn't see his like just very baby face, then you wouldn't have been able to tell from his confidence or his physical stance, and his kind of bravery and conviction that he, was 17. You would think he was just another championship player, and he let all the Millwall players know that he was a championship player. He wasn't an under 21s player in this game. He was there and he wanted them to know that he was there. So I like that, a bit of grit, a bit of kind of maturity, but also the naivety of youth, I think, really played to his advantage. And I'm looking forward to him hopefully getting some more minutes throughout the season. I know there's only 15, games left, and they are crucial games. But he is a talent that I'm excited for, whether it's not, whether it's this season or not. I think he could be something. I enjoyed Schmidt. I thought, I would have loved to see him play on the left. I know that obviously he is right-footed as well, but when he was brought in, he was advertised as a left back. I mean, a bit like Max Verber was, and he's not a left back; he's a centre back. But sometimes the hype towards a player can lead you into believing that you're going to get X type of player and X from a player. And he was brought in and advertised and targeted as the left back, kind of that would supersede Firpo. So I would have liked to have seen Byram at right back and Schmidt at left back, but I thought Schmidt did a very good job. I wouldn't even like mind seeing Schmidt further up the pitch. Like he's had most of his minutes up until the Harrogate and this Millwall game, replacing Nonto as a winger. And he does have the speed and the creativity and the kind of the vision for quick interchange passes. So I wouldn't even mind seeing him as an additional winger. Um, yeah, so we could, how Fak used to do the whole like change and put brand new six up front. You've got somebody like him that's incredibly versatile that can do a job at both. That he could bring us that attacking impetus when we need a game changing in the last kind of 15-20 minutes. But he could also shore us up at the back as well. And whereas last season we didn't have that kind of flexibility within players, it was very square peg round hole, whereas he's kind of like a moldable peg. So we'll kind of fit wherever we need him to be. I don't want to say he's the next Stuart Dallas because it's just become a bit of a cliche at this point. We had Shax who was kind of pinpointed as that's what his role was going to be, and obviously that didn't happen. We still created enough chances to win that Millwall game if players hadn't have been maybe a little bit too selfish, then we do win that game. Yeah, I think that's about it for the good. Let's move on to the bad because I don't want to make this a ridiculously long video, and it's taken me quite a bit to get through all of those. Bad, we should have scored at least another 5 against Coventry. If we're being realistic, if we convert the easy shots that we should have had, we probably should have won that 5-0. If we convert all shots from both sides, then that game probably should have ended 7-1, 7-2, obviously to us. But yeah, we should have had a penalty. The Aronson one, I actually thought was way more of a penalty than the one that we got given against Cardiff for the Dan James foul. He just didn't make any contact with the ball whatsoever, went right through the back of his legs, and I was absolutely shocked. I thought that was just a nailed on penalty. Now I know that I know that Aronson can go down quite easily, but he had his legs in the air ready to strike the ball. It was an absolute stonewall penalty, and the fact that that decision wasn't given was just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Um, I thought that some of the players, Dan James, Solomon, even Pirro, I think all of them needed to have the kind of side before self kind of ethos sign kind of held up to them at halftime. There were so many opportunities that we should have scored, that there was a better ball on for somebody else. And that's what we were doing. That was the difference for me in the Cardiff game versus the Coventry game. We were being selfless. We were working as a team. We were scoring for the team. Whereas I think that the Coventry game, the kind of maybe the hype of the Cardiff one had seeped into some of the players. And instead of doing the easier things in order to get the goal for the team, they were trying to do the spectacular for themselves. They were trying to get their personal stats up instead of working as a team to get the team stats up. And that was quite frustrating. And some of that kind of selfish behavior did follow through into this game against Millwall. So I don't like that. I do have my players that I love, obviously, you all know that, but I also want Leeds to be like, Leeds is my number 1 priority when it comes to these games, not the individual. So I was disappointed. I was disappointed in Dan James, and it's not often I say things like that. And I don't think he had a bad game. I don't think any of them had a bad game. It was just that they could have had a better game by making the right choice for the team and not necessarily the choice for their own personal statistics. So that was a tad disappointing, really, from several of the players. The goal should have stood. The last goal, Firpo, Nonto goal, whoever actually gets the ball over the line, it should have stood. When the ball was played in, Nonto was onside. So even though obviously by the time he touched the ball, he was way ahead of everybody, when that ball was played in, he was onside. And regardless, even if the flag had have gone up immediately and it had been flagged for offside, and, if it was offside, which it wasn't, but you're not in the Premier League. You look over, everybody looked over, Nonto included, at the linesman, no flag, everybody was celebrating. And I think it was somewhere between like 24 and 28 seconds, the flag then goes up. No, that is not on. You don't, regardless, even if you're trying to replay something in your mind before you make a decision, it doesn't take that long. It just doesn't. He was swayed by the Coventry players running over and intimidating him, and that is something that I detest when players do that. It should be the captain and or the person that was directly involved in whatever incident it is. I hate it when players run over, because the referees that we have in this country are so weak when it comes to sticking by a decision or allowing themselves to change their mind when they realize that they're in the wrong. Either they just have no courage of conviction. And I was really angry with the fact that it took them so long. We deserved that third goal as well. Coventry had offered very little. I was borderline disappointed with how weak and pathetic they were. I expected a far tougher game, but yeah, that's just, and then obviously you've got all the conspiracies, the referees hating Leeds. There was some information about one of the referees that said that they supported Sheffield United, and you just wonder, hmm. So yeah, that wasn't fantastic. Um, Obviously, there's a lot more negatives when it comes to the Millwall game. It was obviously a very mismatched team. I don't blame Farker for doing it. He has to learn from mistakes. He has to understand that his job, yes, is to win things, yes, to win games, yes, to breed a winning mentality. I get all of that. But his job is to get us promoted, and I would much rather go out of the FA Cup than lose against Millwall in the league. The team that Millwall will face when they next come to Elland Road will be a completely different one. The crowd will want to get their money's worth that they probably didn't, and I do feel sorry for the fans in that instance. I do, but that lineup was exciting. When I read it, I was like, "Oh wow, that's a lot of changes," but we've wanted to see these players. Oh, it's unexpected. Millwall won't necessarily be able to know what they're going to be up against because it's the unknown for everybody, Leeds included. So I thought that there was a real kind of sense of people could showcase themselves. People could put themselves in the, I don't mean shop window as in like to move on. I mean shop window as in like for Farker, and give Farker a headache, another headache of having people clambering, knocking at the door saying, I deserve to be in the team. Um, but there was only a couple of people that maybe lightly tapped, and that would have been Sam Chambers and Schmidt for me. There was quite a few people, people who were, kind of starters at the beginning of the season, like Joseph. I thought he was really poor. I thought his passing was poor. I thought his decision making was poor. He's still learning. He's still young, and it was a cup game, so it ultimately didn't really harm anything. But he didn't do himself any favors. He didn't knock hard on Farke's door in that game. You know, he FA Cup games can be kind of used as mini auditions, and he didn't really give a sparkling audition in that game. I thought Ampadu was poor again, disappointing. Um, Seeing him be so poor, I Gilavogi. I mean, he has the turning kind of circle of a tank stuck in treacle. Um, he was awful, and I like breaks my heart to say that because he just comes across as such like a lovable person and a real hype, let's go get them type of person. But I don't really want to see him on the pitch again, starting or playing considerable minutes. I am fine with him making token minutes. Um, but yeah, he was a large portion of why the front and the back were so disjointed, and he was just so slow. So his match fitness, match sharpness was really obvious to see that it wasn't up to scratch. He probably should have had a red. I genuinely think if VAR is involved in that, I think it's a red, and obviously that is more damning and damaging to us when it comes to the league, um, because that fear of a player's just been sent off. You're gonna have to bring players that you wanted to rest on. It just everything that could have gone wrong had VAR been involved. Luckily, they weren't. But if the ref would have given him a straight red card just then and there, I wouldn't really have thought that he was wrong. And I hate agreeing with referees. Darlow was unlucky with the goals, but I do think he probably should have done a little bit better for the second one. The first one, like the ball just went in a completely different direction. It was not his fault in the slightest. Um, but yeah, they possibly could have done better with the second one. Penalty taker, we need some training on set pieces just from every perspective, from defending them, although we have got better at defending them, but we haven't really got better at scoring them. Corners, free kicks, penalties. If Pirro isn't on, I kind of don't want us to take a penalty. And we seem to lack, I don't know. We don't have. I would have, if Solomon was on the pitch, maybe Solomon would have been good at taking the penalty. But Strauch for me is a no now. He just doesn't look confident. And I think because has he missed 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5? Either way, it's like it's roughly 50% he's missed. And he didn't look confident stepping up. He just didn't look confident or competent at taking them. And I really like Strauch, but I think we move on from him taking penalties because we just don't score. I was so wanting Pirro to just miraculously, oh yeah, there he is. He's on the pitch. Yay, he can take it. Because then it's a completely different game at that point. It's very, very different. We get back into it. But yeah, we need a new one. Let's move on to, so we've had the good, the bad, and the calm. I'm in a foul mood after we lose. I come online, have a chat about it, feel a bit better, but I'm majorly sulking about it, and I was completely fine. We got out without injuries. We allowed Aronson and Dan James and Rodon to have a game off, and Rodon has played every game for us so far this season. So I was very happy with him being able to be rested. And maybe the FA Cup could be a distraction and extra games, potential injuries for Burnley. I'm not wishing injuries on individual players, but just as a whole, it wouldn't be the worst thing if Burnley got some injuries in the FA Cup, because they managed to bore the hell out of that Southampton game and get through. Um, one of the things that bothers me is the gap between the two leagues financially in terms of the financial package that you get in the Premier League, even as like a bottom feeder team versus what you get in the Championship. They're just so different. And we don't have the ability to be sentimental over the cup. And right now, it feels like sentimentality. Like it feels like I want the FA Cup to mean something again. I really do. But I'm also quite pragmatic, and I've seen Rodrigo get injured. I've seen replays. I know obviously replays aren't happening this season, which I also disagree with, because lower league teams, especially, and well, anybody based out of the Premier League needs that extra financial support and revenue that can come from replays. But we need focus on the league, and we then probably need stability in the Premier League if we get there for a few seasons before we can even think about an FA Cup run. Um, Trophies are fantastic, but we need to get back to the Premier League. We need to be stable financially, player wise, manager wise, because obviously we don't know what Farke's going to do or be like in the Premier League. So we don't know how long we're going to have him. And I mean that in a nice way. I don't just mean like, oh, we're going to get rid of him. We have to think practically of a lot of managers with promoted teams. Look at, Ipswich are the only team that have kept their manager so far. And that's because they know realistically they're not going to get much better. He's taken them from League One to the Premier League in 2 seasons. So, but, Southampton sacked their manager, Leicester sacked their manager, Wolves sacked their manager, Everton sacked their manager. So in that race for survival at the bottom, you don't know how long you're going to last. In an ideal world, we can do both. But if we get players injured during games where we're not likely to actually end up getting anything in the end, was it worth it? Was it worth being in the Championship for another 16 years because we got through to the 5th round of the FA Cup? And that pains me on the footballing side to say that, and this is how messed up the Premier League has made football, and how the finances and the completely top heavy support that the finances give to the footballing pyramid. It means that the people who are just underneath the ones at the top are actually the worst affected, because you have teams at the bottom that love the FA Cup, know that they're not going to do anything in it, don't expect to. So everything's just like a joy. Whereas financially and game wise, like the Championship, 46 games, and your aim is to get out of it. Whereas some clubs, some smaller clubs, are happy doing what they're doing, and that is fantastic. But with a team such as Leeds United, who don't want to become, mid-table Championship teams like, Norwich and Watford and West Brom, who seem to always be in and around the playoffs, but over the last couple of seasons they haven't got there, and they're seeing the financial implications of that hitting them like a brick wall. And we don't want that. It's, if money was fairer across the EFL from the Premier League, then there wouldn't be this desperation to get back to the Premier League, and there wouldn't be this shocking lack of pride in the oldest cup competition in the world. And this is how disappointing football is turning into, is that we're not bothered. I wasn't bothered yesterday. I was completely fine. As soon as that final whistle went, I wasn't happy because I don't want to lose, but it wasn't a league game. And my goal, my aim, my desire for Leeds this season is to get to the Premier League, because that's where we can make better, comfortable choices. It's where we can get the players that we've missed out on because they would rather get the financial packages and opportunities available for lower end relegation bound. You know, they would rather play in a relegation battle all season than come and win games constantly in the Championship, because the difference in the exposure for the rest of the world and also the financial implications are just so different. And this is what money has done. It has sucked the life, so that the FA Cup, unfortunately, means sweet FA. Um, Let me know what your thoughts are. I do apologise that obviously I've had to merge two games into one video. Hopefully, when games start to just spread out a little bit, then I can be a little bit more on it, and I will be a bit more organised. So yeah, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like, please become a channel member. Massively helps, because any spare money that I am getting, I am putting into ideas, I'm putting into getting organised, and I'm trying to save up to get myself a nice new ring light and potentially even a nice camera. So yeah, please show some love in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.